Well, Razorback fans, the Razorbacks are wanting their NIL back, as we know, and the story continues to develop. But is it hurting Razorback recruiting? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, as it was a busy one, needless to say. I know a lot of you are going to be interested to hear about Razorback baseball, and we will talk about that and their loss of a third straight SEC series. We'll get into that, but also the NFL draft. A couple of Razorbacks drafted, which was really cool and great for them in that particular situation, as well as some players that signed some free agent deals. So we'll discuss that. But I wanted to bring up the latest development in this Madden situation of NIL in Arkansas. And a lot of you are probably saying, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this again? I even had somebody be like, we need to stop talking about the guy who's no longer on the team and was going to be a third string quarterback, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, folks. It's like, I get it. But the more that this develops, the more that it starts to really, one, put some things together on what Arkansas is going to do and what they're planning to do and what implications it could have on the college sports landscape. And also Arkansas being the forefront ahead of this is really something. But there are elements to it that have Razorback fans, and I've had a few of you reach out to me and ask, this doesn't hurt recruiting, because do you really want to be the school that goes after kids for their money? Do you really want to be the school that is known for that? No player is going to want to do that if they feel like they can get away with it for somewhere else, which, again, we'll discuss. But I want to give the latest, and this has been a great job by Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports, as well as Yahoo Sports, or 24/7 Sports, excuse me. But he's done a great job in the reporting on this, and he wrote this actually on late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And we all know about the situation with Madden, and they're wanting money back and everything. But there's been a few developments. And what it is that essentially Madden was going to be owed $400,000. Arkansas is looking to recoup $200,000 of that. And they sent demand letters out to him and as well as another player. That was the latest that we had. Didn't have the name of any other player. But we'll get to that. There is a name. And also, Arkansas has now hired an attorney, as well as Blueprint Sports, who Blueprint Sports, by the way, is the one who handles the Arkansas Edge. They're the one in charge of it. But they have hired the noted sports attorney, Tom Mars. Now, a lot of you know Tom Mars. You know his name. He's always involved in a lot of different things in the sports world, especially the college sports landscape. And the thing about Thomas Mars is that he doesn't ever take a case, and he doesn't ever do anything that he doesn't feel like he's going to win. So that's a pretty significant deal. But they've hired him to enforce buyout provisions in NIL contracts. Rob Sine, who's the CEO of Blueprint Sports, confirmed that to CBS Sports. The collective is following the orders of Hunter Yurchek, who said, hey, go get that buyout money, and contracts broken by players in an insistent statement released this past Tuesday. And the two former players, of course, being Madden. The other one is now, as it's come out, Desmond James, the former wide receiver, which he is the guy that didn't play at all really much in the season, had that breakout game against Texas Tech in the Liberty Bowl, and then jumped into the portal. So Arkansas apparently had a deal set up for him, and he signed an NIL deal with them, and he broke it, and he transferred, and he's out. So apparently a meeting between Madden's representatives as well as Blueprint Sports legal team is expected earlier this week. And now you've had something come out too from Darren Heitner, who is the attorney for Desmond James. Because, it's one thing with Madden and that whole situation, but with the Desmond James situation, he's hired an attorney, which, man, this is just such a weird thing, where essentially he put out a statement saying, quote, "My position is that the buyout clause in the agreement is unenforceable as written and applied under Arkansas state law. So you see that and you're like, oh, okay, well, you might have a point here. So what are we looking at? He says, quote, for liquidated damages to be valid, they must reasonably estimate potential damages and apply when actual damages are hard to determine. Here, since Desmond James received no payment and the agreement was terminated just a few days after execution, Blueprint Sports suffered no harm. Thus, the clause appears to be a penalty rather than a fair estimation of damages, making it unenforceable. So I take that as a bunch of lawyer talk, where it's essentially saying, yeah, we signed the deal, but because we just signed the deal and then quickly bounced out and cut and reneged on the deal, then we're not held liable for it because we didn't receive any of the money. And I don't know if that's going to be enforceable or not. I'm not a lawyer, but it certainly does seem like a weird way to approach it. Like, you signed the contract, you admitted this, you signed the contract, you admitted you broke the contract, and you're just kind of like, yeah, well, he didn't get paid anything, so you can't enforce that. All right. Good luck with that. But still, his name has been out there, and I want to know, and I'm curious to know, and this is what I find fascinating, like, how much did they pay Desmond James? Was it a significant amount, or was there a significant amount of promises made? Was it a significant amount of a buyout? Or was it, just something to where they just started doing that and he was one of the first players? If not, he was the first player that did that. Because you think about it, Arkansas had so many people transfer out of their football program this fall, and a lot of them making really good NIL deals. It makes me wonder, okay, so did all those players this past year, did they not sign a contract where there was buyouts? And if they did sign a contract that was with buyouts, does that mean that they ended up paying it back or paying their penalties or whatever it is? Because there's only been 2 demand letters sent, and it's been to these 2 players. So Madden Iamaleava, I'm not going to ever say it. I'm just going to keep calling him Madden. 1-year contract is what he signed with Arkansas for around $500,000. That is confirmed. And the contract included a provision requiring him to pay the collective 50% of the money remaining on the agreement should he leave the school. He was due $400,000 remaining in payments, so it means he got $100,000. Which amounts to a buyout of $200,000 because it's 50%. So, don't know the money situation there with Desmond James, but Tom Mars, who's based in Arkansas, has been the center of notable NCAA affairs over the last decade, and he's also recently represented Tennessee's NIL collective in its fight against the NCAA, because of Nico and all that situation. So, still, they're going to try to get their money, and that's the latest thing, is because they're now trying to figure out if there's legal action. And basically, multiple schools have become more inclined in reevaluating legal action against former players who do not honor their contracts. So essentially, what it comes down to is that, at least from this, that there are ramifications, and Arkansas seems to be pursuing those ramifications. They are wanting theirs. They're wanting their money. So I don't know what all is going to play out in this. I don't know if Madden's going to pay the $200,000 to Arkansas. Maybe it's something settled out of court. Who really knows? I don't know if Desmond James is going to pay back any of the money. I don't know how far Arkansas is willing to go into the legal system. I mean, are they going to see him in court and then have a very public court case going on against these guys and against these college athletes and everything? Is it going to get to that point? I don't know. But there is an element of it to where, from the moral standpoint, I think me and every one of you agree that if you sign a contract and in that contract there are consequences for breaking said contract, you should pay those consequences. You should suffer those consequences. Just like it would be the other way around. If Arkansas did something on their end that ended up canceling the contract, but they were going to owe the player something, they should have to pay up. It's as simple as that. I think all of us are on agreeance in there. But the thing is that in this day and age in college athletics and college sports, there's some people that feel like, well, is this a negative recruiting bit? Even though it's right, even though Arkansas is in the right, is this something that's going to come across negatively? Because it's going to maybe possibly scare some players or scare some potential players, or maybe even get some other schools to use those tactics in recruiting, saying, hey, you know, if you go there, though, you're locked in. You can't leave. They won't let you leave. And if you do leave, you got to owe a bunch of money. Well, over here, if you sign with us, we'll let you, we'll never hold you down. We'll never handcuff you to the program. But if you go over there, they'll do that. And whether you believe it or not, that is something that will scare student athletes. That is something that'll deter some student athletes. Now, is it worth it all in the end? I think so, because I think inevitably we're going to get to that point anyways. But at what cost? At what point do you just continue to continue to build it and continue to pursue it and continue to try to have your day in court to get this money back? My thing is that you have to be certain that this is worth it. You have to be prepared for all options, all alternatives. And you also, as an athletic department, need to understand that even if you win this case, even if you win it, even if you get this money back, there will still be some who are going to look at this in a negative way. Whether it's right or wrong, it's going to be viewed in that. Are you going to be able to handle that? Or what's going to be your counter to that? Are you just hoping and praying that it's all going to come together and then everybody's going to have to sign contracts and everybody's going to be held liable for those contracts? I certainly hope so. Because again, I think we're all on the same page that this needs to be addressed, and it needs to be, everybody needs to be held accountable for their actions, regardless of if you took money or not. You signed a contract, and in that contract had language. That's why you need to have those reps. That's why you need to have agents and have lawyers, but so that way you don't sign something that you don't want to get involved in or you don't want to be a part of. I'm on Team Arkansas in this. I want everybody to be clear on that. But I also know how, I didn't make the rules, but I know how to play the game. And the game is that it's recruiting, and it's going to be about perception and the public opinion on, is Arkansas doing this for the goodness and the justice of contracts and all of that? Because I think everyone's on board with it. But is it going to cost them a player? Is it going to cost them some recruiting? Is it going to take a little bit more? Even if they're willing to pay the big money, if they're wanting to sign these contracts, is it going to be problematic? That's the ultimate question. And to me, I don't think so. I think that if it impacts anybody, it'll be just a few here and there, if any. I think sometimes we over-dramatize these types of things. Be like, oh, geez, it's the recruiting. Not that it's been great and stellar anyways, in football at least. But it's going to be like, oh, man, this is going to be terrible. Everyone's going to be coming after us. I don't think it's going to get to that extreme. I just don't see it that way. So hopefully Arkansas rides this out. Hopefully they get it done. Hopefully everything ends up being all right, and hopefully they get their money. But as far as a negative recruiting tool, I think that's an overblown deal. But we'll see, man. There just continues to be developments coming out. And again, shout out to Hunter Yurchek and the U of A for pursuing it, because what's right is right. And these kids, they are kids, but they're paid kids and they're adults now. They got to suffer consequences if something like this ends up happening. So, but we will stick with football and talk about the NFL draft. Arkansas had a couple of players drafted. We'll get to that. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I'm here to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here. Actually, they are here. My goodness, it's amazing. Like, sometimes I feel like it's getting into the Final Four, of the Western and Eastern Conference Finals, and then I think that's when the playoffs really start for me. But no, they actually are here. There's a lot of games going on. But FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action, because right now, when you join FanDuel, you can place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy for everybody, whether it's picking the favorite team to get through or any in the player props. There's also those available, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has had so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for your chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 bonus bets today. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So the NFL draft happened, and I don't think anybody was really expecting a major amount of Razorbacks to be drafted into the NFL. I mean, for crying out loud, I didn't really even talk about it last week. I'm just going to be honest, because I know y'all. I know what y'all come here for, and sometimes I'll start a show, and I think it's really interesting and really fascinating. And then, the numbers never lie. And then I see that's like, maybe not so much because the numbers were down from previous episodes. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And obviously nobody has any interest in it, even though I find it interesting. But, the NFL draft and all of that, even though I think fans were still interested to see what happens, because football's still football. The NFL draft's still the NFL. And a lot of you who are Razorback football fans have NFL teams. So, there's always interest there, but it just wasn't something that was going to move the needle for a lot of you. And one of those reasons being is Arkansas was not expected to have a first-round draft pick. I feel like more so than even in the NBA draft or MLB draft or anything, in the NFL draft, if you have a first-round pick, everybody becomes fascinated. I mean, Traylon Burks everyone was fascinated where he was going to end up because they felt like he was a first-round pick, which he ended up being. Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, those guys, first-rounders. So everybody's going to be fascinated by that element, but Arkansas did not have that. They did, however, have Isaac TeSlaa, Razorback wide receiver, and defensive end Landon Jackson get drafted both in the 3rd round. Now, what's crazy is that Isaac TeSlaa was the first Razorback taken by 2 picks. Isaac TeSlaa was taken 70th overall by Detroit in the Lions, and Landon Jackson was taken at 72nd overall by the Buffalo Bills. So the good thing is for both these players, they're in really good situations. Both franchises, both programs are really good, have had pretty stellar and consistent success, and they have good coaches. It seems like they have a good front office and putting it all together. So it's going to be a really good fit. Really, Landon Jackson, though, I mean, I felt like no matter where he was going to go, he was going to be awesome. And there's this video, I wish I would have played it, but the video when he found out that he was getting drafted by Buffalo was just really an emotional and a really cool moment. And I've always been a huge fan of Landon Jackson. You know, we talk about who's a hog. He's a hog, man. And I know he transferred from LSU years ago, but he stuck with Arkansas. He could have gotten drafted, I felt like, a year ago, but he stuck with the Hogs once again, became a captain, and really did a great job. So I'm really happy for him, and I think it's awesome that he's going to a really good place where he can be successful and play. The Isaac TeSlaa situation, him going to Detroit, what's fascinating about this, and a lot of y'all may remember this, I interviewed Isaac TeSlaa when he committed to Arkansas 3 years ago on this podcast, on Locked On Razorbacks. Really awesome dude and a really cool guy, and deserves all of that is getting to him. But what's crazy is that he's from Michigan, and he's grown up a Lions fan his entire life. And so I think that was something he discussed on the podcast years ago. So I thought that was really cool, and the fact that he is not only getting drafted, because he wasn't like his stats weren't exactly incredible, but he was just a freak athlete who had all the intangibles you would want. And the fact that he's going to be going back home and playing for the Lions and seeing his family and their reactions was awesome too. So good luck to both of them. We're going to be rooting for both of them, and hopefully they have great, stellar careers in the NFL. But that was all that was drafted. Arkansas only had 2 players. But the other ones, like Andrew Armstrong, to me, I felt like he was the only other one that was a legit chance to get drafted. Did not happen, especially since he led the SEC in receiving yards, receptions, but only had 1 touchdown. It still blows my mind. But either way, he's going to the Miami Dolphins. He signed a free agent deal with them. So at least he's going to be warmer down there. Tyrone Broden, former Razorback wide receiver, also signed with the Seattle Seahawks. And apparently he ran a 4.3 40-yard dash at 6'6". So he always had the speed. I know he had problems with the drops on occasion with Arkansas, but people liked his speed and everything. Eric Gregory went to the Cincinnati Bengals, defensive lineman. Jaquindon Jackson, running back for Arkansas, goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was all SEC second-team recognition from the AP. Cuddy, Marquise Robinson, goes to the Baltimore Ravens. Keevy Rhodes goes to the Jaguars. Nico Slaughter, the defensive back, goes to the Jaguars as well. So a lot of Jaguars and former Razorbacks. And the no-fly zone, Hudson Clark, going to the Vegas Raiders. So I really love that for him, and I wish them all the best. It's really cool, but and this is not me taking away from their moments and from their days and all of that. So please don't take it that way. But man, it just really shows you just how, you got 2 guys drafted. You're talking about 7 rounds. You're talking about hundreds of picks. And you had 2 guys drafted. Man, it makes sense. It's not like you had this great elite team, but if you want to know, like, what look at Arkansas's best seasons, when have they when was a direct correlation, or maybe when they had the most players drafted in a single draft, what did they do the previous year? Well, they usually had a lot of success to go along with it. So you're not going to get there with 2 draft picks. You're going to have more, and hopefully Arkansas finds a way to build it to that. But congratulations to all the former Razorbacks, and again, wish them nothing but the best of luck. Hopefully we get to talk about them more, and hopefully they have long, great careers there in the NFL, regardless of where it's going to be. But we got to talk Razorback baseball. Dropping another SEC series, unfortunately. We'll get to that. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, there's nothing like an atmosphere of an NBA playoff game or Baum-Walker Stadium against the number one team in the country, Texas, which is going to be happening this weekend, because every single play, every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge, and it's electric in the arena or in the field. So with Game Time, though, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets. Even when demand is sky high, prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. And their last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off. They have the last-minute deals where if it's sports or concerts or comedy shows or theater shows, whatever it may be, you get to save up to 60% off. I mean, you're not going to get a better deal than that anywhere else. Plus, the all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. So what you see is what you pay. Simple as that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and then create an account and then use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Razorback baseball, man. They lost to Florida. They lost game one. They ended up taking care of business in game two, winning convincingly. And then game three, they blew a lead. They were up 5-1, and they lost 9-5. Florida scored 8 unanswered runs, and that drops Arkansas now to 37-9, 14-7 in SEC play. Now, before I get any further, that's still a great record. And Arkansas is still has won twice as many SEC games as they've lost, 100%. But it's always about timing. And it's one thing to lose the way that they did against Georgia a couple weekends ago, because I don't ever want to lose, but it was like, man, you just made some simple mistakes. If you just do this one play, if you get that final out, hey, you win that series and it changes everything. But but Georgia's a good team, really good offense. You just lost a series. Okay, you went on the road. And then this past weekend, the A&M game, A&M series, you lost that. Well, A&M's playing a lot better. They were the preseason number one team for a reason. They're getting it going, and you caught them at a time where they're starting to get hot. And also the double header stuff is always weird, not making excuses, but it always changes some things, maybe get you out of your rhythm. But either way, you made some mistakes in that one too, and it was frustrating to watch, especially at times with the pitching and timely hitting. But even then, you're like, okay, well, sucks. But hey, Florida, they're not as good. Their pitching is really bad in SEC play. They're giving up a ton of runs. This is a good way to get the confidence of the offense going. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. This is the first time since 2016 that Arkansas has lost 3 straight SEC series. And that was the 1 year in Dave Van Horn's career that they didn't make postseason. Now, they're not going to be in danger of missing postseason, so I don't want to say that. But it just shows you how long it's been since Arkansas has done something like that. Florida actually won 3 straight SEC series. And we also know that Florida is a good program. Kevin O'Sullivan's a really good coach. Dave Van Horn really respects him a ton. And there's a lot of back and forth there, but Arkansas had their chances, left a ton of people on base, but just didn't get the job done when the moments mattered the most. And you're just a few feet away from tying the game. They're late in the game with a 3-run shot by Kuhio Aloy, and it just didn't go over. So, here it is. You lost 3 straight, and your final 3 SEC series coming up are against arguably the top 3 teams in this conference, arguably. The number 1 Texas team, who actually beat Texas A&M this past weekend, which we know that was a big deal. But you got them coming up in Fayetteville. Then you have LSU on the road, and then you have Tennessee at home. This is not the way you wanted to have it. It's not the way you want to look. And I don't want to trivialize the struggles. And if you're upset, you have every right to be. If you're frustrated, you have every right to be, because the expectation's there, and you have lost 3 straight series. And especially since you feel like talent-wise, on the field-wise, you should be just as good, if not better, than all 3 of those teams. But it's the way it goes. So you can look at it glass half full. You can look at it glass half empty. If you're going to be playing your worst baseball of the season, I'm fine with it being right now. Because that's what they always say. You play your worst baseball at this point, and then you get hot late. There's still a possibility of that, but this could just be the lull, and then all it takes is a Texas series win or a LSU series win on the road, and then you take off and you're really flying high. Could be that. Getting Gage Wood back into the mix. I mean, he was great over the weekend. So, simple things that can really change the trajectory of everything. So that could happen. You could also, just take the approach of waiting and seeing. Yeah, this sucks, but let's, if they win these next 3, which could happen theoretically, then it brings you all back in, and then it doesn't even matter. So it's just a matter of your perception. Again, you can be critical. You can say the pitching has struggled, which it has. You can say that some of the timely hitting has not been there, which it has. And so you can say all those things. But here's my approach. You can agree, disagree, whatever it is. But here's my approach. I felt a certain way when basketball season was happening this past year of, all this stuff that we talked about was struggling and frustrating and so annoying and dumb, and this team wasn't any good. And then they went to the Sweet 16. I'm going to take that same approach where it's like, I know they're going to get to the postseason. Let's just see what happens in the postseason. All right. Now they got to win some games here. They got to get some things done. So I'm not saying that they're 100% in already and that you don't have to worry about, I want them to do well. I want them to win games. But when it comes to everyone talking about this team sucks or the hitting sucks or the pitching sucks or the coaching staff sucks, everyone's saying everything sucks. Let's see the end result, because I'm a big proponent of that when it comes to coaches, especially. Judge them on their full seasons, not on their individual games and series and all that. Because if that was the case, Cal would have been everyone won and fired after this past year. But it's amazing what happens when you go to the Sweet 16. Suddenly you forget about all those issues that you had during the season. And it'll be the same thing this year. If Arkansas gets back to Omaha, if they make it to Omaha, the College World Series, you know what none of you are going to remember and bring up? Yeah, well, remember when we lost 3 straight SEC series? No, you're going to be in Omaha. That's the end goal. I mean, to win it all, but to have a chance of winning it all by being in Omaha. So frustrating, yes. Got to get better, yes. Can it get better? Yes. Do you have a reason to be upset? Yes. But still a lot of season left. You've been here before. You got a talented team. Just hope it all works out. And hopefully Carson Wiggins is okay. I know that was a scary thing that the trainer, he got the trainer out there and the trainer had to take him out, because anytime something like that happens, it's never good. So hopefully whatever it is ends up being okay and not too serious. But either way, we'll see what happens. That'll do it for us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.